So I'm going to give a little introduction to myself, but this is going to be a very special chat for you guys because it's going to be a lot of getting to know the actual me. Because anybody who's worked with me or actually never met me, I don't really talk about myself that much. I talk about work plenty, but not about the actual person. So it's going to be very interesting. Oops, there you go. So I'm Joe. I have been doing graphic design, product design, physical product, digital product, leading teams, catalogs, you name it. There's not a type of design, clothing design, jewelry design for the last 20 years. Going into year 21, it's actually kind of eye-opening when you always do a retrospect of what you've done over time and look at your body of work and kind of say, where'd you have the time to do all that? Coffee's the answer. So I currently work at Havas, New York. I'm an associate creative director for the experience and design department. An amazing group of creative people who love and care about their work. And for us on the UX side or XD or CX or whatever we call ourselves these days, putting the users first and giving the best experiences for all the people that are around us and who are interacting with the things we work on. So I ended up with this weird knack of building creative teams. Back in when I started my career, I just found not the need, but I found it easy to lead people. And then as I've gotten jobs, it was like, hey, we need more people for this. Hey, we need more people for this. Build process, build procedure, and bring together people in a workspace that love and are excited and want to continue to build great design together. And I've done it 5 times. Sometimes at the behest of the CEOs, because they didn't even realize that we need a creative team. So we had to talk to them about it and educate them on why we're important. And again, going back to these promising the leadership of companies what we're going to do and what we're going to accomplish for them. So my favorite thing to say in my weird hipster way of living life is I was doing UX before UX. So if you're not familiar with the user experience term or the industry, back in the birth of the internet, we ended up with this. We started building websites, and we started building websites for demographics, for people, for the users. And back then we didn't call it UX. We just called it design. We called it, website building. So now we have this fancy ass term for it. And people go like, oh, you've been doing UX for 5 years because that's the title. I'm like, no, hell no. Like I've been doing this forever, ever. And I think that's one of the best things about this industry, that especially being creative, our work will constantly evolve. And your experience that you get from the start to when you finish, and in my case, I ain't never gonna finish, is leads you on this path, which we're gonna touch on throughout all of this. And I'm always disturbingly happy. She mentioned before about the big smile that you always get from me. People who know me, have met me, they usually see this face. I'm usually joking around. I'm usually laughing a lot, sometimes causing a little bit of ruckus in between. But that's been from the jump. Like, that kid always smiling. So, how do you go wrong? And to be fair, I absolutely never get dressed up like that anymore. I have a ton of ties that I never wear. Not that one specifically. That would be really weird and short on me. So as we talk about promises, right? And bear with me, I got the standing desk. So I'm gonna, if you see me in the thing, I'm just gonna be walking around. Don't mind me. So I'm still here, unless you see me leave, but you'll still hear me. So I promised myself to always be artsy. And that sounds funny, but that came from when I was little. Look at this. It's fly, right? Look at those lines on the side of the head. Look at that fake Coochie sweater. That was this kid, this chunky little human being, would carry around paper all the time, pens, artwork, would draw what I saw, draw like what was in my experience. It was a lot of cartoons because I was a kid, and who doesn't love cartoons? I'm an adult and I've been watching Batman the Animated Series while I work all day, because it's still that passion of being creative. And it was that start that led me to always say, this is what I want to do. It's not an easy thing to say you want to do at all, because when you, like, in the long walk of life that we have, we always end up with these moments that, like, is this the correct thing that I want to do? And somebody already in the chat asked if what was the first thing I considered in UX? Like, it was that natural progression of life. So back when I went to college, as this little disaster of a human being started to grow up and cut his hair like normal, and may or may not have had a Knicks logo shaved in the back of his head, I realized, like, I wanted to be an artist always. And I always wanted to push that side. So when I went to college, I had this great portfolio of illustrations and art and all the stuff that I was doing. And I went to go get accepted to college, and I met with this guy, this great man who I got to say thank you to him before he passed away. He said, you know, this is great, but you're not an illustrator. Tear my heart out, why don't you? Tell me that everything I believed I was doing, since I was wearing this ridiculous outfit and that I would draw everywhere and my grandparents would hang up my artwork all the time, that this is not for me. And he goes, listen, you have a lot of personality. You need to be a graphic designer. What the fuck's a graphic designer? I don't know what the hell. He goes, oh, you make advertising and packaging and stuff. Don't worry, you'll be great at it. Oh, shit. Is it creative? Yeah, it's creative. If you still want to do it afterwards, if you don't like it, go right ahead. So now, cut to my first day of college, was my first real hit of what we now know as imposter syndrome. I'm sitting in a room full of people, staring at a Mac for the first time in my life. We didn't have a computer growing up. We had TV. TV raised me. And that was the first time I interacted with a computer. And I was like shitting my pants, because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? And back then, for all the older heads out there, we were on like Mac OS 922. So it was like not even what we're looking at today normally. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I know I could do this. Professor Ross told me I could do this, but these people are so much better at this than me. How am I going to compete? So that promise to be artsy was something that I kept to myself, because it was like, now I have to continue. This is the path. This is where art's going to take me. And then I started to learn about design. And I started to learn about typography and imagery and how it all comes together, and how we're supposed to use it and affect people and bring people together. Oh man, that was scary. And then as I graduated college, getting into the workforce, like, I've been hinging on this personality for a long time. Like, it's always helped me, because I've always stayed back to who this boy was. You know, I picked something that was not a hobby. I picked something that I loved, something that always meant something to me, and turned it into a career, and a career that grew. You know, it was as our jobs progressed, and as the computers got more, sophisticated, and then our audiences become more sophisticated. Like, how am I going to keep up? And how is this love for what I do going to keep driving me? And then we're here 20 years later, and I'm still talking about it, and I still fucking love this so much. Like, I still draw. Not as good as I used to. I'm guaranteeing this kid probably had a little more better skill set with drawing cartoons than I have now, but I'm always drawing stuff out. It's that deep love for what we do that really changes how we go about the rest of our lives. So leaving this little kid, as we get older, I promised not to be an asshole. And people, y'all could be out there and be like, that seems like common sense. Y'all know what I mean. Y'all have met people that you're just like, no, they're a straight up asshole. And there's a reason why. So this handsome man was my grandfather. He was the man who pretty much raised me, taught me how to be not just a good man, but a good professional. So he was the vice president for Trans-Caribbean Airlines. He worked his ass off to get to where he was. He started off as a mechanic and then just kept grinding to be leadership. And he would tell me, don't be an asshole. And I'm like, I'm 10? Sure, whatever you say, Pop. Whatever, that sounds fine. I could do that. Fucking know what the hell he's talking about. But then as he showed me, so the infamous wall of hats that everybody, whenever I take Zoom calls in here, makes comments about, these are all Met hats. For anybody who knows the New York Mets, it's a very rough existence being a Met fan. But those are a tribute to this man. He would watch games with me. He would talk shop with me from when I was little. Like, it's not even like this is a thing that happened when I was an adult. He would talk to me about his work and talk to me about what he would do. And then his one main thing was, if you interact with a CEO, you treat that person the same way you would treat the person who's emptying the garbage. And I would be like, all right. He's like, they're just the same person. And I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know anything different. I'm growing up. But then I'd see it in practice. Like, we'd go to Shea Stadium and go to Met games, and he would talk to everybody. And he, despite you can't really see, handsome Puerto Rican man. I'm Puerto Rican, even though you can't tell because of my Irish side really kicking it through. And apparently I'm super Italian too, that I found out. Thank you, 23andMe. But he would talk to everybody, talk to people in Spanish, talk to people in English, and would just have these conversations. Funny side note about all this, while we're watching the game, he's just sitting next to me with his radio on, listening to the broadcast, and then say stuff to me like, baby, did you hear what he said? No, I'm here, sir. But that was the basis of what I would learn. Everybody is the same. You know, you treat everybody with respect and care, because no matter what job they're doing, no matter what their life is, like, they are people. And that golden rule, you do unto others as you want to be do unto you. Like, it's not a hard concept. And you bring this to work, you bring this to your clients. And if you're in design, you have to talk to people from marketing and technology, and you have to always come to them. And I use the terminology, you talk up to people, you don't talk down to people. When you talk up to people, it makes them feel like they're included. It makes them feel like they're safe, and it makes it feel like you're not a fucking asshole. You know, there was a whole stigma about IT people that when you never wanted to bring your computer to an IT person because they would talk down to you. But that's also because people would go to them and be like, good thing I have a prop here just in case. It's my work computer. You'd be like, oh, this doesn't work. I can't get my email. And that immediate interaction sets the tone off wrong. Be like, oh, hey, how's your day going? It's not fucking hard. I live in New York, a city where we have a reputation of being assholes. But when you see and you start your day opening a door for somebody, or not completely knocking them down in the subway, like, everybody needs a little push pre-COVID, because now obviously nobody wants to be near anybody. But you change somebody's day the second you say something nice. And then you continue that dialogue. Obviously, I'm chatty as hell. So like I've talked to IT people, I've gone drinking with them because we just started that conversation and it just keeps going. And it really does make a lot of difference. Like how do you not? Like how do you start your day with that anger? Trust me, commuting sucks, traffic sucks. Sometimes your coffee doesn't get made correctly. It happens. You don't let that one part of your day change the rest of your experience. And that would help you to, say it with me, everybody, not be an asshole. So now, for the people who are on this call who I've worked with, this is and that, by the way, obviously I made that promise to my grandfather to never be an asshole. I have asshole-ish moments, just to say. We all do. But to love what you do. So going back to that nerd with the lines in his head, I chose this path. I chose what I'm going to do. Every day I go to work. Every day it's a pleasure. Like we all know people who hate work. You may be one of those people. You may be in a job that doesn't really feel right. You may be with leadership that doesn't support you enough. But all of that is secondary to your experience. So if anybody who's heard me say this, I love my job, but I hate people. People are awful because guess what? We sometimes are surrounded by a lot of people that are assholes. Not that that's going to be a common thread through all of it, but it just seems to kind of work out that way. But you can't let somebody else ruin your experience, as we just said. So for me, I've always taken a job that I found interesting. I've taken a job that hit me the right way. Sometimes I've taken jobs that didn't necessarily pay well or pay less than what I was doing. I would just say, don't do that. It creates a struggle because money definitely is important, unless you buy all them GameStop stocks. But it is about the work. And here's the thing. So again, going back into my life, I was once married. I know I look so young. But I was with a person who didn't care that I loved what I do and just cared about money. And it made it hard because I would take a job and I'd tell her about it because it was so exciting and it was something new. And, at this time I was getting into the bicycle industry. And I'm just like, I haven't rode a bike since my BMX when I was a little kid. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but like they told me about the brand and the message and the goal that we were going to accomplish. Her first thing was, how much does it make? How much do you make? I make this amount of money. Wow, that's not a lot. I make more than that. I don't care what you make. This isn't a competition. This is about me doing something that I love, and the money's gonna be there. The money's gonna come if you're doing what you love and doing what you're passionate about, whatever it is. The money's gonna come. You have to struggle sometimes, and it just happens. That's life. But those struggles create you. So as I was doing this, and I was still doing what I loved, and still dealing with this negativity in the back end and positivity coming out, I was working with great people. And one of the people who I ended up not knowing work there was a kid I grew up with, a kid I haven't seen since I was 16. And now I'm 26, 10 years later, because we didn't have the social networks that we have now. We didn't all stay connected. It was like, yo, you got my beeper number? Hit me up. But that was the thing. And then we just lose contact because then beeper numbers change constantly. But I met him, I got connected with him. And then we decided that after a couple of cycles of working together, we love what we do. And we decided that we're going to create a bicycle company just for us to work on, just me and him. And we did. And it was tough because our working styles are very different. I'm super, super regimented and he's mad free flowing, but that's fine because we know who we are. And, you know, we're going into we just passed year 5. We did, obviously 2020, we didn't do much, but we just passed year 5 of our Fire Island bike brand and our Forest bike brand. And after year 1, we said, like, I don't know, should we do year 2? You never make money your first year. That's what they tell you. But we did. We made a little bit of money, not a lot, but just enough to keep us going for next year. And I said, you know, yeah, why not? It's not taking a lot off of us. But we continue to do it because it's something we love. And this is the one rare time that I'm wearing something that's not a Fire Island bike t-shirt or a Mets t-shirt. So I got dressed up for you people, by the way. My hair's done. Still wearing sweatpants because let's keep it real. But like, that's the thing. Like, we constantly had these things like, oh, maybe this will be the last year for it. This will be the last year for it. And then we sold through our bikes in 33 days from launch. Next year will be our last year. Next year will be, nah, fuck it, because we love this. We crave this work. Like, we love building things. We love building physical products for people to enjoy themselves on. Like, how do you not get so fucking amped up to do stuff like that? Even if you work for a bank, like, I have a couple of designers that I worked with American Express here in the chat. I sold them on a job that was not a sexy job, fucking credit cards, but it was analytical and it got us going and it got us to think. And I'm pretty sure a lot of my annoying passion for what we do rubbed off on them a little bit. But see, there you go. But we loved it because it's your work. You dictate how good your work is, not somebody else. So I think that's something to always keep close to yourself. Like, I also, how could I forget every person who has a startup? Joe, I have this great idea. For any of the designers in the room, I know y'all heard this 1,000 times. I have this great idea for an app. I have this great idea for a product. I have this great idea for this. Sure, tell me. Actually, I'm like, again, not an asshole. I go, here's an NDA. I'll sign the NDA so you're safe. Not that I'm ever going to steal anybody's shit, but I want people to know that they need to protect themselves, you know? So it always is something somebody is passionate about. And when you hear somebody's story and you hear what somebody's doing, how do you not, like, get excited? You get excited for them. And this is a shared experience. You know, being a designer and being creative and helping people with what they have to do is such an important thing. And that's, somebody has a great question in the chat. Like, especially now as like a UX designer, we are a UI designer, whatever we freaking call ourselves, product designer. You have to work with other people in your experience, right? Other people who are fucking insanely passionate. And the question is about developers. Developers love what they do so much because they wear t-shirts of the software that they code for. Like, that is just something that's next level love. And to be fair, I got a bunch of UX t-shirts here too. That's like in the rotation of my normal everyday activewear. So as you talk to them, as you talk to people in your experience, and especially at work, it's all two-way communication. I did a great talk about what I call the Smart Handoff, where it's a whole process of how to really be a great teammate to a developer, because sometimes we speak the same words, but we don't speak the same language. And I think it's something that, again, in the world we live in, like, empathy is such a clutch thing to have. Like, you can't not come to this world without empathy. And you have to hear each other out and listen and iterate together, because also going back to like how work is, when you iterate with somebody and you create with somebody, it creates this level of excitement and maybe sometimes tension, which is good. Tension is fine. It's okay as long as you're not punching the shit out of each other in an office building, which is great. Totally, I'd say do not ever do that. But it's okay to disagree. We live in a world where we think that everybody needs to agree. We can have disagreements as long as we talk to each other about what we see. And then what ends up happening is you come to a common ground. Trust me, there's been some poor ass developers that had to deal with my crazy ass coming to them being like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I got this great idea for this part of the site. I want to build this fucking parallax experience, and this is gonna move, and this is gonna move. Sam, who's in the chat, she knows it, she fucking built it. And I went to them and I'm like, we gotta do this. And they're like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Well, what's gonna work? What can we do? Like, how can we achieve this? Oh, we can't load another JavaScript. That's fine. I don't care what the fuck. Will you do CSS? Can I do CSS? Sure. How? My CSS knowledge ends at certain points. So then we did research and we talked about it and we worked on it and we ended up creating this amazing experience that later got scrapped because of corporateness, but it's fine. Sorry, Sam, for bringing that up, so I won't. But we still got there. We still came to them with a great idea and found a way that we can make something that we're all proud of and that isn't status quo. So communication is obviously a big thing. And I think it's something that's insanely important to all of us. A little side note as we're talking about this, but it is such an important thing to love what you do and to continue to love it. Like the second, and this goes for anything. If you're in a relationship and you fall out of love, what happens? You know, sometimes you have to rekindle. Sometimes you have to pivot and find something new. I never fell out of love with graphic design, but UX became something that it was what was next. It was the evolution. And I could have said, I don't know. But I said, no, let's do it. Let's continue to grow. Let's continue to grow together. Me and this analogy, me and the design world. Let's push myself. Let's continue to like grow and together and see what we can do and see what we can build and fucking just enjoy life. And then it's still to this day, like where I work now, like I'm sure some of our clients are just like, why is this guy so happy all the time? Why is he so amped up all the time? I don't know. I'm sure somebody will be like, maybe he's on something. Yeah, I'm on the 20-year high of being a designer. Unfortunately, it's not going to go away. No matter how much wine I try to settle it down with, that just makes me more creative. So who this was for, because I actually forgot this, what the hell happened? There it is. It's actually for the people you work with. I forgot to hit the slide, so there's a little thing. Live TV, folks. And this is a picture of me doing a talk where we were all together and they were forced to listen to me. But that's who you do this for. You do this for the people you work with, because every day you spend with these people, we all know it, spend more time than your coworkers than you do with your regular family, yada, 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 or for me in this empty house, like they're your family. You know, they are people you learn about, you get to know, and you learn to care about them in a way that it doesn't happen all the time. Some of my best friends are people that I've worked with. And in some instances, I've hired a lot of them, which really sounds weird. Like this is like a long-term, like I hire people to be friends with me. It's not. I hire them, they get paid from the job, and then eventually we all become friends. But it is that thing of the care, the energy, the love, being nice to each other and supporting each other and caring about each other's future. Like when you love, especially when you're in leadership, like if there's anybody here who's in leadership or going towards it, when you love what you do and you have that care for your own path, you have to care about the people who you're bringing up. Their path is so important. And it's such an amazing feat to help somebody become something more. And it's mainly on them, but you're there in the corner. You're always going to be there in their corner. Back when I was a graphic designer, I another weird thing about me, not weird, but part of my career path, is that I primarily always hired women. I've always had strong female forces in my life. I use the word forces quite literally. My mother and my grandmother like tornadoes of destruction, but I always hired women. And then when they started growing up in the careers, always supporting them. And then there was a thing when I first started, when I was still a graphic designer and a creative director, when they started becoming art directors and creative directors, they sent me their business cards. And for the kids in the room, business cards were these paper things that we used to hand out at networking events, when networking events were a thing, and not everything was like this. And it would come in the mail sometimes, or we'd grab drinks and they'd, show it to me. And it brings such joy. It's like, how do you not? The love and care you show for these people, and watching them continue to fucking go kick ass and be creative and make a difference. So remember that when after you leave here and you're on your Zoom calls and you're looking at the people in the room, or you're just looking at names, because let's be serious, we are all over being on film these days. We're all just names in a bracket. But just remember, they're people. So I'm pretty sure you guys got this one. Ain't nothing's gonna stop me. So here's a great story for you guys. One of my very good friends is on this call. He knows this one very well. That's my face. That's my face. I broke both eye sockets. I fractured. By the way, best part about this image is that you could still see the gap in my teeth very prominently as a skull. 2016, right? I got this job at IBM. Awesome. Can't fucking wait. This is going to be great. It's all work remote. I have no overhead. I can go take my bike out when I want. I can go get lunch. Foreshadowing the future of 2019, 2020. I miss people. This is as close as I get. I wish I could hug all you guys or high five all y'all. But I went out on a ride after work and I crashed face first into the pavement. So, longer story of this, I lost consciousness. I don't know what happened. So I have currently 23 plates in my face holding this mess together because of how everything kind of crushed in, because I'm not a small guy either by any stretch of the imagination. I was not wearing a helmet because it was a local ride. And I know everybody's shaking their head. All the jazz hands are gone now. But the reason why was it was a short ride. I could always do it. I was fine. I've done it a million times. Never thought anything different of it. And to be fair, the helmet wouldn't have helped. It doesn't cover my face. I went face first. The first thing I asked one of my friends, so I somehow called one of my friends. Ambulances came, whatever. I said, who for some reason, she's 8 months pregnant. I don't know why she was my first call. She still to this day says, like, I had sciatica and you fucking called me because you were dying on the street. But I said, Kat, can you do me a favor? She goes, yeah. So I was in an accident. I need like a change of clothes. Can you go to my apartment? Because she lived in my complex. Can you go to my apartment, grab me like a change of clothes, my 2 laptops, and make sure there's a charger in the bag. I think there's a charger in the bag. And meet me at the hospital. She goes, okay. What? You want your laptops? Yeah, I don't think I'm leaving tonight, but I have some work I have to get done tonight. So she brought them. God help me, she brought them. Forgot underwear, because in my story of what I needed, which is fine. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. But during those 2 weeks, I didn't stop working, which all of you are going to be like, this fucking guy. he's insane. He's a workaholic. He ultra facts. Not that I'm going to deny any of it. But while I'm in the hospital bed, I have nothing to do but think about work anyway, responsibilities. And I started getting the thoughts of like redesigning the MRI machines because I thought they were bulky, and the X-ray machines that they would wheel in their rooms. And that's with the laptops. So I was still working full time and still having these crazy ass ideas, which I did redesign the X-ray machine. That's a whole other thing. But what it did was, that's my happy place. Like, my work is where I feel safe. Last year, my mother passed away. My boss said to me, take some time. I said, no, I'll be on the meeting later. I might have to take some time off here and there. This whole fucking thing, this promise I made to myself about being creative has been fueling me and taking care of me. And when things are tough, it supports me. When things are great, I live for it. And it's why I do it. And there's no fucking way anybody's going to stop me. Like, you can't tell me that the industry is going to change, because guess what? I'll move with the industry. You can't tell me that this isn't something that you're good at. In the beginning of my career, we can go into a whole talk about how many times I was turned down for fucking jobs, which is hilarious, because then they come back to me and they're like, oh, can you, we know you interviewed with us, but like, can you come work here? No, motherfucker, I can't. I got a good job now. Like, I hope you all take the time to appreciate what you're doing. And if you're not happy at your job, keep grinding to find something that you love. Never be afraid. Look at that goddamn skull that's staring at you right now. You can't be afraid of what's going to happen, because if you are, then you're just going to be dwelling in this circle of fucking nonsense where you don't know what the hell to do. How am I doing on time?
Perfect.
Fuck yes. All right. So thank you so much for hearing me out. Thank you so much for hearing my stories. I'm happy I didn't fucking cry because it's in here. Thank you.
I think I'm speaking for everyone. Thank you so much, Joe, for such a wonderful talk, for sharing with us your promises, that even though they are not there are things that we want to remind ourselves all the time. So thank you very much for bringing those up. We're laughing along and chatting along. And there's 2 questions, maybe. We have time for 2 questions that they ask on the chat. The first one, what was the first thing you did and consider UX?
So that was just part of my journey. Like, it was, when I started UX, I didn't know what research was. I knew what research was, but I didn't think it was something that I knew how to do. And it was something that I had to really start, really get better at. And I think that's also the thing that we all have to know, is that in these jobs, you have to continue to drive to be better. Like, you're not ever at a plateau. Like, it's always an evolution forward. Hope that answered it somewhat.
There's another question what's your thoughts on working with developers? I think you share.
I hit that one.
And if you present a design and they say no, how do you approach that situation when you're unstoppable?
Well, I think that's what going back to that conversation about communication, the best part is some of the developers that I've worked with over the years, I'm still really good friends with, and I still hit them up for like iteration projects, because they're somebody who they have such a great energy about them, and they care about their job. And like, when you have those ideas, you have to find that common ground, like we talked about before, like making sure that we're all kind of level set.
Wonderful. And then just to finish up, there is a question. Have you ever experienced a burnout? And if so, how do you handle it?
So, no, never had burnout. Actually, it's half true, half not true. So, in my day and in many days, and Shivani York, who's on this call, she hired me. She said she hired me in a bar. Totally true. Which has a great story to go with that. But I'm notorious for burning the candle down to the wick on a daily basis. And I think you have to take on as much as you can handle. Like if I find myself taking on too much and I know that it's gonna cause me any type of distress, I kind of say no. To be fair, I never say no. So for instance, outside of my regular 9 to 5 job that I have, or 10 to 6, whichever way you look at it, currently I'm building an app, building a new product, a physical product, working with my friend who's in her consulting firm on building a website and branding. And I basically work from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. Not healthy, I will say, but I think the pleasure I've gotten out of this is that it's become so effortless to do my job. Like the love that ends up coming through this from going back to the fucking beginning, it's not work. This has never been work. And there was a great quote that I put on my last slide, which I forgot to fucking get to. David Carson, famous graphic designer, said, if you will do your job for free, you chose the right career. Mm-hmm. And let's be serious, as designers, depending on how many designers are in the room, we have definitely done our shit for free. But I think that's it. Watch yourself, take care of yourself. There was a lot of promises that people had in the beginning about self-care, self-love, and making sure that you're okay. That is still such a key part of my day. I still meditate every day. I still, despite my best efforts, drink enough water, because that's something that we need to do. Wish I had water here now. I drank through all my coffee. Put yourself first. Like work is always going to be there. So just, if you start feeling burnout, fucking take a minute. Relax, breathe, go for a walk if it's not fucking -2 degrees out like it is here in New York today.
Mia has a question, but thank you everyone for joining if you have to go. But Mia asked, what are a few things you have had to sacrifice at the expense of passion? Which I really love that question.
Hi, so do I. God damn it. I wish I had an answer. So I will say, and again, looking in retrospect, we always have to remember that this is a journey. We're on a journey. So regardless of what we sacrificed, it doesn't matter as much. So I went to work halfway through college. I started freelancing. I started getting going. I needed to be a professional. I needed to do this, half because of that wonderful old man that raised me, because he wanted me to always be the best and kick fucking ass at what I do. But I worked and put work over everything. Again, I loved it, had a shit ton of fun, but I didn't have as much fun as in my 20s. I definitely didn't. I didn't go out and have drink too much and party too much, and I was in a relationship with that creature to be named before. I sacrificed a lot of the time that I would spend socializing with people and filtered that right into my work. And what's funny is, I know we all talked about it. You heard me talk about it. The people I work with are my favorite fucking people. I filtered all those 20s into that. And to be fair, anybody who's drank with me recently, even in my now 40s, God damn it, I still know how to party. So I see the question from Christine, which I want to hit this one quick. As a mentor, what would I tell my younger self? Oh my God. I would probably tell him, don't give up. like, I know now I'm saying I never give up, but there were moments sometimes, and like, never give up, but it always gets better. Because even though I love this, and I can't reiterate that enough, but you know, sometimes the job will get you down. Like, remember, people fucking suck. They're the reason that ruin work. And it's, sometimes I would take that on and try to push it aside. Like, my staff wouldn't really have to deal with it as much. Some of them have, but like, I need him to remember that it's always going to be better. You will get there, you know, like, keep your fucking head up. Like, you have to.